Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Marie and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset.
All right, welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. I am Coach David Syvertsen. I am not here with my co-host, Dr. and Coach Sam Marie. It is just myself and 2024 Masters Games athlete, Bison athlete, Tracey Magee. Everyone, clap your hands, clap your hands. Thank you, Tracy, for coming in. Tracy is now about a week removed from the 2024 Masters CrossFit Games by Legends, and we're going to reflect on the whole year leading up to the games and then also the games itself. But before we get into that, Tracy, I do want to say from my perspective as a friend, as a coach, as a fellow athlete that has had aspirations to compete at that level, how proud I am of you for reaching that level, putting yourself through the grind of training for the games, the actual games itself, which is such a hard thing to do emotionally to balance the ups and downs, knowing what you went through over the past year with your injury, which we will touch on. It really was a special time for us to stand out there. We had some Bison out there to support you. Just seeing you on that level again, because this is your not your first CrossFit Games, but it's been a while since the last one. Almost 10 years, right?
Yeah, 9 years.
So I just want to let you know that I really am just as the coach, athlete, and friend, that how proud I am of you that to see you out there, and really thankful for you to come on today.
Thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate it. Are you going to get me all emotional?
No emotions.
No. I'm going to keep it down.
Yeah, no. We can. No, the emotions are with this stuff. I think a lot of people on the outside don't realize how emotional this stuff can be.
Yeah.
It really is, and that's just the ups and downs, and we're going to get into that. But it's a very, from the outside, it looks like, oh, you're training hard. The thrusters are hard. The pull-ups are hard. But I do think the emotions are just as hard, if not more difficult, than the training sessions themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, you put so much time and effort into your training, into performing, and, you start to see improvements. You're getting excited. And then when it comes to competition time, you just never know what's going to happen. I mean, we always say control the controllables. I know you've said it to me. I know Dan said it to me, other coaches. And then there is often, and as happened in my case this time around, the uncontrollables, which can have a big impact. And so if things don't go your way, it's very difficult, because we are very competitive. We want to do our best. We've trained to do our best, and we're prepared to do our best. And when things come along that, that prevent that from happening, and you're disappointed with your performance, it can have a kind of a negative effect. And, I am a person who does wear the heart on her sleeve, so when I'm very happy, you can see I'm happy. When I don't feel good, I mean, it's hard for me to disguise my emotions. And I don't think it's a good thing anyway to, try to always bottle things up. I mean, you feel how you feel, express them. So that's what I do. I have to get it out. I feel what I feel. And then it's like, okay, you got to get over this, moving on, next day, next workout, and just try to, feel empowered and go, okay, let's go, next thing. But that's the wave constantly, and you never know what's coming the next day, the next workout, and you just kind of got to take it on the chin. Or if it's a good workout or a good move or something goes really well, then you're kind of elated, and then you kind of can ride off that also. So it's all part of the whole process.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. We're gonna talk about process over and over, and I think that's gonna kind of be a key focus, because we have some people here that are shooting for your level. I want to be there someday. Inspired by you, inspired by others. And how do I get there? It can't just be working out. It can't just be my nutrition, right? There's got to be other factors to this process, and we're gonna learn about some of yours, because I think yours is incredibly unique. Obviously I don't know all of the 400 plus athletes that were in Birmingham, Alabama for the first ever CrossFit Masters Games that were their own exclusive event. And that was by itself a major victory, in my opinion, for the sport. But if I pulled all of those people and I asked them, hey, did any of you have basically a reconstructive shoulder surgery 12 months prior to the games, and you're still here? I think the answer on that would probably be zero. I think you had a really unique story that I would love to dive into, as much as you're willing to dive into it. But let's talk about the healing process of an injury that you sustained last spring. This is spring 2023. And before we talk about the healing process and the surgery itself, what actually happened for those that don't know? What happened to your shoulder? This is May 2023.
Okay. So first of all, just to say, like, my position on this, I am a competitive athlete. I think we know that. And I understand you have to pay to play.
Yep.
Okay. So you were hoping that whether it's in training or in competition, that we're going to, work hard, do well, and we're going to get better. Sometimes we put ourselves on that thin line of potentially hurting ourselves. So it started actually before that, and that was actually at Legends in 2023.
Was that at Mayhem?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was where we were all together there at that time.
Yep.
So, and it was on a rope climb. So I'm really good going up on a rope, and I've always had fear coming down. So I have the terrible habit of having a vice grip on the rope coming down, and
coming down like
coming
segmented.
down, yes, exactly. So I slipped coming down the rope, and I grabbed on very aggressively, and it just kind of jarred my shoulder pretty aggressively. And I knew in that moment something had happened, and I remember distinctly because it was Ashley in the that I could see it. You can, for whatever reason, we always hear Ashley. Or,
yes.
She's one of these amazing cheerleaders and just wants what's best for you. And she was like, I could see her looking straight at me, get up. And I think I looked over her and more or less let her know, I'm actually having trouble getting up. I was scared. I was really scared. And as a consequence, that was the first 6 rope climbs, and the last 6 I could barely even get through. So that was tough. So we still had the following day to go. So I came into the warm-up area the next day, and I'm thinking, how's my shoulder? I was afraid. And then we had the chest to bar pull-ups and the handstand push-ups. Great workouts for me. And I'm like, I'm doing this. Yeah. I am doing this no matter what. But when I went up to warm up for my chest to bar pull-ups, I felt a pop in my shoulder. And then I knew it was something, a little bit more than just, minor strain. So I rehabbed it for months and the months leading after, because then, of course, we had the Open, we had semi-finals. So I have a really, really good physical therapist, Jesse. He's from Out of the Box Physical Therapy, and he was really good with getting me kind of rehabbed enough to do work. So I was just very mindful of it, making sure that I wasn't overloading that shoulder, doing all the cross-surface symmetry, everything that I needed to do. But it was getting better, I thought, but it was never really going away. And then I think it was right after semi-finals, we were doing heavy cleans. So now I have rope climbs and cleans now, which have this kind of a little bit of a mental kind of, scary feeling sometimes when I'm doing them. And it was a hang clean, and it was just, and that's what it was. Then I felt the rupture, and I remember looking at you. You were
you come over
class,
and showed me.
and I said, Dave, I don't think this looks right.
Yeah.
And I felt
basically your bicep was down at your elbow.
Exactly. So not only did I have a supraspinatus, which is the biggest rotator cuff, that was a full thickness tear. That completely went, and then the long head bicep just comes down off the top of the shoulder, and that was a complete rupture. So I went to my orthopedist, and then they gave me, we went for all the tests and the MRIs, and they diagnosed it. So the interesting thing about that is, and it probably seems like crazy, oh, you have a rotator cuff tear and you have a torn bicep, like, how are you able to do stuff? So I don't know if people remember, I was still in the gym and I was still training, and I was able to do a lot of strict stuff, because you can have a separated bicep and still do strict stuff. Right. But kipping, a lot of dynamic movements were out. So, and that was May, and it was August then by the time that they got me in. There was so many things going on with my doctors and all these different things. Right. That's when I went in for the surgery. But I was still able to maintain a good amount of strict strength, on gymnastics in particular, before even going into the surgery. Right.
You didn't go into that surgery after 2 months of just sitting on the couch feeling bad for yourself. No. If anything, you probably started coming in more.
I did.
Like, you were coming in almost every day, and I know you did a lot of your bike workouts at home, because you really, the key to a recovery, especially with something surgery based, is the base in which you're coming off of.
That's right.
Yes. If you're trying to recover from a big surgery, or we correlate it to some of our pregnant women that work out during pregnancy, that base that you're coming out of is, if it's that much slower because you didn't work out at all, the recovery can seem even more difficult,
more daunting,
than it should be,
and longer to actually come back to. And that was always on my mind. It's like, what can I maintain? What can I keep at a high level going into the surgery, knowing that the first, because there's a full 24 weeks is what they call is the initial like of your process. There's different phases, like the first 6 weeks or first 2, first 6, first 12, and so on, that this is full rehab until your shoulder is kind of somewhat normal.
Right.
And I was pretty religious about my recovery. I mean, it definitely, I won't lie, it really, really scared me. Knowing you couldn't move my shoulder at all, in the initial few weeks. And even the physical therapy was very difficult for me to get through. I did have some setbacks during it, trying to regain range of motion, and it's extraordinarily painful.
Right.
But again, in CrossFit, we're used to putting ourselves through a lot of discomfort. So, I knew I could kind of push through. But it was very scary, and I just thought to myself, if I ever want to get back to this stuff, I have to do this right. I have to do this correctly. The hardest part, honestly, about it was being away from the gym, from the community.
Yep.
And so for the first 4 months, I needed to be away, because not that I would ever have been reckless, but just the temptation just to be there. I was just afraid I would do something or bump into something.
You see it all the time.
Yeah, so I'm like, it's safer for me to be away. So I was in the Globo gym when I was able to do stuff. I know that's a term that we use. I don't mean that.
The evil Globo gym.
Right, but it was.
No, you have to. That's probably the best place to go to when you're going through something like that. Absolutely.
Where I could be safe and just do maybe single arm and
less intensity from like a group feel. There's no clock. The music isn't blaring. You're not getting a score put up on a board. It reduces a lot of the temptations that lead you to try overextending yourself.
Yeah. If you're inclined to kind of push, and and we tend to like in CrossFit. But once I was ready, I said the fear, aside from there just wasn't certain things that I could do like in a CrossFit gym, and I just didn't want to be always in the way or always looking for modifications.
Right.
Or, but once I was mobile enough, I did come in and I was doing the banded press downs for lat activation, and I was doing single arm rows, all those things. Once I was able to move with my 2 arms, I was doing a 6-pound medicine ball like squats and burpees off a box. I mean, it was complete regression. I mean, all the way back. And I know a lot of people ask me like, oh my God, you must it must be terrible for you. And honestly, it wasn't. I like that process. I was excited to see,
building a foundation
and coming back. But that's what it was 4 months in. I remember coming in just to kind of visit, and I'm like, I don't care if I can do a fraction of what the work is. I have to be back.
Yeah.
Because being in the environment was just very, very empowering. And it was just, just be around other people, of like mindedness, like I said, even if I was modifying.
And so the timeline on this was the surgery was August. You do the Globo gym throughout the fall.
Yeah.
When did you actually start to feel like you were doing CrossFit again? I know you've been modified no matter what, but when did you actually feel like, all right, I'm going to come in and work out with my class today?
I think it was probably in December, and it was just certain workouts. And I would always check with my doctor, check with my physical therapy, can I do things? And, again, most people know me, I'm very, very competitive. I would push the envelope too much. I actually was very, very careful.
Yeah.
And even sometimes when they told me I could try certain things, I'm like, oh, are you sure?
Yeah,
and
it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, so it was double unders. So I remember, it was a dumbbell workout, and it was double unders, and my physical therapist and my doctor said, yeah, you can do jump rope. And I said, well, double unders, we're whipping a little hard. And they're like, you'll be fine. It's, So I'm like, let me try it. And I did do single arm. I think it was dumbbell thrusters on both sides. I did do single arm with the dumbbell. But I did feel like I was doing class. And I remember because Rafi was across from me, there was like just people. And I think maybe Kat was down behind it. And I just felt like I was with my people. And I just felt like, wow, and I got like, I think it was 50s of the double unders. I got them unbroken. And it was like, wow, how did this happen?
Yeah, right.
And again, it was just that because of the years of practice, the years of that foundation of constantly putting it back. It was a matter of get a little bit of practice. That's what I did down the back of the room, see if I could do it, and then try it in the workout.
Right.
But it was probably maybe another month or so after that where I felt like I was doing CrossFit in a greater capacity, like I was able to incorporate more movements. And then I did start thinking about, because people are saying to me, oh, are you going to be doing the open? And I'm like,
I was going to ask you,
don't
so now we're like January, February,
Yes.
you know, there's a lot of things you can do, some things you're still scared to do, and, you know, qualifying, and the CrossFit comes out with the information, because when someone asks you, hey, Tracy, are you doing the Open? That's another way of saying, Tracy, are you competing this year? Because, you know, doing the Open for fun, for being a part of the community is one thing. Doing it with, hey, this is the start of my competitive season, is a whole different mindset. And so if someone asks you, I'm assuming they're like, hey, are you competing this year? And CrossFit at that point had already come out with the information that the quarterfinal threshold was being bumped from top 10% worldwide for Masters to top 25%. And Tracy has always been top 1% in the Open for a decade plus. So normally an athlete of that caliber does not need to go into the Open being like, all right, you know what, I'm going for it this year. Like, they can usually jog through the workouts, maybe, you know, view it as a hard training session and test yourself, but you're not really thinking about your scores in the Open unless you're coming off an injury where you're not sure if my threshold is there. Did that information help relieve some stress that you no longer had to get top 10%, it was top 25%? And for you, I'll say, you don't have to say it, it's kind of like a walk in the park for you to finish competitively in that tier. Did that actually kind of open the door to the season for you, knowing that you weren't going to be rushed into having to be ready sooner?
Yes, I think it really did. Like, when I heard that top 25%, I know there was mixed feelings across the board with how people felt about it. And for me personally, I felt it was like, okay, now I can do the Open and just see where I'm at.
Right.
To see what I'm capable of without actually worrying about would I be able to, you know, make it in top 25%. Let's see how the workouts play out, and let's see how I perform. But then, of course, day one, you know, that first workout, once I got in there and I'm like, okay, we do 35-pound dumbbells all day long. And that was something I was able to get back. Dumbbell snatches at 35 pounds. And it was the burpee, I think burpee over 2159,
yep.
wasn't it?
We're actually doing that workout soon at Bicep.
So when I'm like, okay, so the dumbbell's lighter for my division, and I had continued to build my engine. I'm like, this will be okay. Let's just see how hard I can push. And knowing that I didn't have pressure to have a top time, and then with that relief of taking that pressure off, it just allowed me to go into that without too much anxiety, because even as a competitive athlete, after all these years, there's still that like butterflies right before you start.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and I remember even you said to me, you'd ask me afterwards, did you record that workout, or did you video? And normally I do all of the, you know, those things, because I always do them really to see what my form looks like, to see how I'm moving. They're my catalog for, you know, my performances.
Yep.
And I was just so like chill and relaxed about the workout that I didn't really think about that. And then also going into that workout, I'm pretty good at strategist when it comes to workout. I know myself very,
experienced,
very well as an athlete, and I don't tend to go out too hot in any workouts, but I knew it was a short one anyway, so I knew I had to be hard, but not too hard. And then when I'm in the midst of the workout, all of a sudden I thought, look, I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah, right.
This is feeling pretty good. So I felt very empowered after that. And then knowing that there was only 2 more workouts, because back in the day there used to be 5, I'm like, 2 more workouts, this feels good, let me just kind of keep going with this. And I had at that in my mind still at that time was, okay, if things are going well, like, and you don't need to have pressure in the Open, the first stage of competition, I can be thinking ahead to what I want to continue to get better at, the things that I need to work on if I am planning to do quarterfinals. So when it came to my training, even over the course of those 3 weeks, I wasn't like saving myself like some people do, like athletes. And that's what I may need to do for those Open workouts. I was still sticking with my regular training, coming into class regularly and working out, knowing that it wasn't this that was, the really important thing. It was the stages coming after. So, yeah, so it was the final workout in the Open. Wasn't it the thrusters and the
thrusters and the bar muscle? That's actually what I'm looking at right now, because your Open scores, you were 100th in the world, then 68th, and then that last one you were 22nd. So you were getting better and stronger as the Open went, and that kind of goes to show where some of the indecision and indecisiveness and maybe even lack of confidence that you had maybe early on or prior to the open, it starts to disappear because you put yourself out there, you came out stronger, and you're like, you know what? I have my mojo back. And I think mojo is something I always think about with competing. It's, yes, you need skills and strength and capacity, but there's a mojo that you have, that a confidence that you can really kind of go to your ceiling in a specific workout, where some people don't ever reach their ceiling because they don't have that mojo. They don't have like that kind of like effort mentality, what Jake Lockhart from Mayhem Athlete called is like the kill switch. And you could see in your open scores that you had that kill switch. And I just wanted to make sure. Now, I want to talk about that last workout, then we can talk about your quarterfinal, semifinal process, because this is a big deal. Like, you can say the open is not what got Tracy to the games, but I do think mentally the open did help her get to the games in terms of A, getting them done, not getting hurt, but B, just doing really well. And your last workout, it was the 5 rounds of 10 thrusters, 10 pull-ups, 5 rounds of 7 heavier thrusters, 7 chest-to-bar pull-ups. So I wanted to make sure. So you didn't have to do muscle-ups, but at that point, were you like confident enough to string reps together on the rig?
So it took me a very long time before I would reintroduce kipping. I hadn't done one single kipping chest to bar pull-up before that open workout.
Right.
But I'd started doing butterfly pull-ups and feeling very comfortable like with them. But I wouldn't only do them if I absolutely had to. And you probably know, even from in class, I would say I'm going to do strict.
Yeah.
I'm going to do strict. I'm going to do strict, because that was my foundation. It was just strict all the way. And then it was in the warm-up, like right before, and that's what I know for myself. I need a really, really long warm-up, especially for anything kipping on the rig.
Yeah.
So I knew I was going to, I have to get ready for do chest to bar. I don't think I'll ever go back to butterfly chest to bar, simply because the range of motion is so big, and it literally is your rotator cuff.
And there's a lot of speed on the way down, and that's probably where you get a little freaked out.
Because the jar, I'm like, oh my goodness.
It's a big, fast drop.
Yeah. The only thing is, like, kipping chest to bar is so much more. It takes so much more
out
of you.
100% harder. 100%.
They're slower.
Yes.
So, but I'm like, okay, I gotta be safe here. So I remember, because Raina was doing it with me, and and Mindy was judging, and so somebody I forget who it was, said, do you want to wait till the next heat? And I said, I think I need to. Okay. So, and that gave me an extra amount of time to warm up, and I just started doing. For me, it's always get the biggest kip that you can get to get your chest. So when I do chest bar, I tend to kind of hit down on my ribs, as opposed to what the standard is just to your clavicle. And they just started feeling really good. So, and I hadn't really done actually thrusters really either, just maybe once or twice. And they used to be, back in the day, one of my best movements, and I still always really like them. And I've, even whether they were light or heavy. And so with that rep scheme, I knew how to strategize. I knew where my strengths were. As I said, I got that anxiety about, can I do this kipping motion in a big long workout? So by the time I got in, I was feeling very, very comfortable doing that. And I know this is what kind of going off a little bit off on a tangent here a little bit, but in the games this year, that's probably why, and we probably hit on it later on, why that particular workout with the chest to bar pull-ups was such a disappointing workout for me, is because, and even when we were walking up together, I remember, we were walking up, because then you were going to help me, because they allowed you to get lift me up to the rig, which is another thing we'll get to talk about. You'd said, like, in this workout, you so little time, just get them all done. And in my mind, I would easily be able to do at least 10, possibly 15 unbroken, and this would be the time to do it.
Right.
So just with all the factors that came into play, like that time, or this time around for that particular workout, that didn't happen, and it was like didn't even feel like myself.
Right.
It was just like I was off.
Yep.
I had a vice grip on the rig. I shredded my hands. I never tear on chest to bar pull-ups.
Yeah. So, it's like you've really had to recalibrate yourself as an athlete. It's not, I wouldn't even say forever, but just this year you had to, because that was not even close to a normal year of training.
No.
And if you know that it was not a normal year of training, and then you're all of a sudden on the competition floor with the best athletes in the world in your division, you don't feel right. You don't feel like yourself, especially that someone that's already been there. It's hard. I think we compare to a fault, we compare ourselves to our former selves a lot. We compare ourselves to other people too much. And in the moment, that can be a really tough thing. Like it's almost like you have to recalibrate how you would approach workouts based on what you can and cannot do right now, or what you can train, can and not cannot train, how you feel out there. Like, does your body hurt? Are you afraid of this injury popping up? And when that enters your mind, it does really calibrate everything strategically.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, there are other kind of factors that came into play then, but like continuing on what we're saying about like with quarterfinals, like I was starting to build and add on skills and bring stuff back like little by little. And I'd been feeling more and more confident as we've gone further, coming closer, I guess, to the game season. So I felt like chest bar pull-ups were now in the bag. I'm not going to do them overly more volume. I will reduce and it's important whether you've had an injury or not. As a masters athlete, we do need to be mindful of volume.
Yes.
Particularly any ones that would be, using connective tissue a lot. Yep. That's what I always feel when you're doing kipping. It's more connective tissue than muscle. And, as long as you've built the musculature around it, which is why I do so much strict strength, then your body can handle it. Coming out of quarterfinals, I had just had the misfortune of something occurring in my life and my other kind of health issues that kind of like resurfaced. So having come out of quarterfinals, feeling really good and strong and empowered, I was dealing with a whole new set of circumstances that kind of slowed my progress, if you will, in training. And I just had to do a lot of a balancing act, because then all of a sudden I'm qualified for semifinals, and I'm like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, you came in in the world. So to qualify for semis, you have to be top 200 in the world in your age group, and then quarterfinals, you came in 37th place. So you easily skated in. I mean, the workouts weren't easily, but I'm saying you weren't even close to not qualifying. So now it's the semifinals. From there is where they take the games. Everyone, right? Top 200 in the world compete over the course of a weekend, and the top 40 in most age groups. Tracy's group being one of them, right? It was 40.
30,
right?
No, it was 30.
Oh, it was 30. Okay, it was 30.
Group, yeah.
So the top 30 from Tracy's age group make it to the CrossFit Games. And now you're talking a little bit more like cutthroat competition, a little bit more cutthroat level of workouts. And I remember, just us talking about programming and training things out, both for semis and the games, it was hard to really figure out what to do. Because I'm big on let's make a plan for the next 2-3 months.
Yes.
But for you, it's more like, how do you feel this week? Let's
we're still playing catch up here.
Right. Let's put this stuff in this week, but let's take that out. And then the next week it's the same thing. And it almost, I wouldn't say it's it's not harder, but it's a very different approach than hey, I'm healthy, I'm ready to go. Let's make all these progressions so I peak at the games. Because one thing I struggle with was I've dealt with this too, is I want to be at my peak at the games. Yes. So to do that, or not the games for me, but at your competition, and you want to train your way there. There's no doubt you want to train your way there. You love the training, but you don't want to do something that's going to prevent you from even getting a shot at competing.
Right.
People that get hurt in training and they don't get to compete, it's such a heartbreaker.
So yeah.
And that's honestly, that's on your mind at all times. And it's, how did you deal with that mentally, of pursuing training for semis and the games while also maintaining and coping, your medical issues, but also the rehab of your shoulder, because you weren't at 100% with the shoulder. I can even look at you in a front rack and be like, her front rack looks awful today, know? Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that mentally? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Right. Well, so quarterfinals, I said it gave me, I was feeling empowered, but then I was dealing with all these additional challenges. So, I was very grateful for having the people around me, my training buddies, to always make me feel excited and energized for training. And I love the process. I love training. I love, just constantly trying to improve myself, get better. But I was getting very overwhelmed for all of the things that I felt like that I needed to be ready to do. And like I said, always making sure, but I don't want to get hurt either. I want to keep this momentum going. I want to make sure that my shoulder stays strong. So it was just, honestly, it was almost like a day-to-day thing of evaluation of how I feel, how can I manage this? And oftentimes I come into you and we might have a quick conversation about, and you said, well, switch out this or do this instead. But I had some really exciting moments as well that happened where, and it did happen before quarterfinals, but I didn't feel solidified. And that was like, do I get on the rings?
Yeah.
Do I even try?
Yep.
You know, and it's always been a really good skill of mine. And I worked, strict before kipping. We always say momentum has always been, my philosophy, like so many, like Dave yourself and so many great coaches that know the importance of that. So I always had very strong, strict muscle ups as well. But all of a sudden I've got the shoulder, can it handle this? And it is a very aggressive movement.
Yep.
And that transition is quite aggressive. And I just remember going down after class and saying, okay, I'm going to get up there. So I just said, okay, let me first do a strict chest to ring and say, I'm like, well, actually, I'm right up there. Okay, I have the strength. And I was doing strict ring dips once I was able to. So I've always built the components of the movement. And so it was just weird. It wasn't really kipping ring muscle, but it wasn't really strict muscle up. But you rely on what you've done for years, like all those mechanics and those skills. So, it's like second nature to me. I know what I need to do. But when you jump in there, like, do I remember? Do I know what I'm doing? Oh, my goodness. So once I did a big kip, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, my God, I'm in the dip. And then because I'd worked such a long time, like during those months, I was able to dip out. And I think Mike De La Torre had been coaching the class. He was down the back, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm up here. Well, I can't believe I'm up here. So and I jumped.
That was prior to semifinals.
That was prior to
because I remember the semifinal workout that we did together. We did the rings and front squat workout, fun workout. And you murdered the workout. I think that was the one that you came in like, I'm looking at your semifinal score right now, and I think it was third place in the world.
Yes. Yeah.
So think about that, third place in the world, everybody. And I remember you getting those first muscle ups and you finishing the work. During the workout, you started celebrating. I'm like, Tracy, stop celebrating. We'll celebrate after.
We still got more to go.
No more cartwheels mid-workout.
Yes.
No, but that's again, you wear your emotions on your sleeve.
I do.
And that's not like, kidding aside, it's not a bad thing to show emotion like that. I truly don't think it's a bad thing. It's a matter of, does that emotion fuel you or take away from like the negative emotions? Like if people start crying mid-workout, not the worst thing in the world, but if it does impact the rest of the workout, that's a problem, right? Where I actually remember I was on the bike watching you do the workout, and I actually think it fueled you. Like that happiness and confidence, it grew within that workout. And that's what I mean. Like that mojo was there. Yeah. You went from, I wonder if I could do ring muscle ups in a workout like this to, I'm third place in the world, bitch. Like, it's like, that's a really cool component. That was one of my favorite highlights of semifinals for the entire gym.
That night was just electric.
Yeah, it was electric that night.
But I mean, Dave, you were right next to me, and I remember, so it's a front squats, and again, I'm a very good squatter, but like as you said, I don't have full external rotation right now, and I may never, and that's a hard thing for me to take, but that's a big refocus when I, now in the next couple of months, I'm going to try to get even more there. So I wasn't afraid of the front squat. I'm like, okay, I got to get it nice and get as high in the front rack as I possibly can. But like, I'm there. Well, the ring muscles were first, the front squat were first. I forget. I think the rings.
It was front squat first.
Front squat first. Yep. Okay, yeah, and then up on the rings. And I remember like you're just flying. I'm like, oh my God, Davies, on the next round of ring muscle ups. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm kind of getting up there. So it was very empowering for me because it was so exciting. I was like pulling from your energy.
Right. The energy in the room helps, and vice versa too.
Yeah.
That's why I think
amazing.
Our gym thrives with this kind of stuff because like we have some people doing the Legends qualifiers coming up next week, and even though I'm not competing this year, I'm going to sign up for the qualifier and be a part of the process because that energy room, like we really do help each other.
Oh yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why our Masters sport community is very accomplished and good because we really do feed off each other. And I think there's a general understanding, whether you're friends or not, you're going to be better if you're with other people in the gym pursuing the same thing. Yeah,
100%. That night was like electric. And I know that I think we're both just saying we're very focused.
Yeah,
like
right.
Once we're in that workout zone, we're focused. We know what we need to do.
Yep.
But you feel that energy though.
Energy in the room.
I remember Mike and my son like kind of walked in at the end as well, and then Liz, all people that know what this meant to me, what it meant to you. And like I said, you said they were there on the bike. And I think what happened to me is during that workout, I looked at the wrong clock. I looked at the clock that way and said, we had our clock down the back.
Right.
And I thought when I was in the last set of ring muscle ups that I had very little amount of time left. And I was thinking, I'm not, because I know exactly how long they're going to take. Right. I knew how I was feeling. I knew I could stick with 3s or 4s and still be okay. But I'm like, I don't have enough time. And then whether it was you or I think it was Dave Lancelotti, he just looked at me because, what are you saying? You made me look at me. He says, you got loads of time. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God. So then it was a further, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, that's a mindset thing.
That was huge.
This is a topic for another time that I do think I'll have Rafi come back on to talk about this, because I've been doing this ever since I started working with him in some mind space stuff, that sometimes the clock can be an enemy of yours, where like you think that's the number and it kind of loses your focus a little bit, where having that pleasant surprise mid-workout, it's like, no, you're absolutely crushing it. Like, you should try this, Tracy, sometimes, like off-season training. Don't look at the clock once in a workout. And you might surprise yourself, because I think sometimes we get addicted to pacing things out, and you actually might be slowing yourself down. So that's a good example of trust your fitness. Like at that point, I really felt you were trusting your fitness.
Yeah, absolutely. I tend to not look until toward the end, but I thought I was toward the end. I just thought I was taking longer just because I'm like, you're not at the top of your game. You're not where you used to be. I just wasn't aware of how much growth I'd had.
Yeah.
So that's why when I looked at the wrong clock, I'm like, of course that's the time. But it is like, I agree with you. You can't be fixated on all the time, because it will affect how you go. But like when it's game day, if it's the difference between you getting ahead of somebody else and not, then it's like, okay, where have I got? Have I got 10 seconds? I'm going to do this. But that was very empowering, and it was just so exciting, and having the energy of everybody there. And that really, really fueled me then for just that confidence, and like, okay, I'm
an athlete again.
Yeah, I'm an athlete again, and I'm starting to perform at that level that's required to succeed at this level.
So speaking of game day, let's kind of get into the actual CrossFit Games this year and discuss, we don't have to go through every single workout, but I do want to talk about a couple in particular in regard to, hey, I made it. I'm proud of myself. You worked really hard over the summer leading up to the games. Still had some fear, with injuries and medical issues, but you're down there, and the first workout is a workout that we just did at Bison the other day, the run deadlift one.
Yes.
I was like starting comps off with like lower skill stuff.
Yeah.
You could just just go try hard, and then you're
Don't think too
you're just mentally in it.
Yeah.
When you were in that workout leading up to you were probably a nervous wreck leading up to the workout, right?
Okay. So yes and no. So a couple of things. So the day before we flew out, we had some unforeseen stuff like happen, like in our family. It did alter my mental game before leaving. So that was somewhat of a distraction, but not necessarily in a good way.
Okay. And
I had my sister with me, and it was really, really good, because she was able to kind of help me refocus on she said, just focus on the games right now, and and think about the workouts like ahead, one at a time. So when I saw that as the first workout, that's definitely a wheelhouse workout for me. I mean, I was a competitive runner and marathoner where, I've been used to running.
Yeah, you're comfortable running.
6 minute miles or whatever for really, really long periods of time. Although I've had a huge big step back from that, but I've always kept it in my repertoire once my knees cooperated. So, and deadlifts again is a strength of mine. So I knew what it came down to is like how you approach this workout, how you like attack this workout. So I remember going in, and I think it was the first time that I saw the athlete area, the athlete village. They did change it later. They started cordoning it off a little bit more and not having many people in there. But I think I might have even saw it was either Dave or Dan kind of going in. And Natalie kind of came at me because she got the wristband to be able be in there as my coach.
Yep.
My helper, all and everything.
Therapist, helper, assessor, coach.
Yes. And so the space was so huge.
It was.
And we didn't really have access outside, but I'm like, I'm going to run. So, I mean, I know not all athletes, not all CrossFitters, but I think you should.
Yeah.
If you're going to run in a workout, you got to run to warm up. That is just, especially if you want to do it competitively. So I just ran the whole space. Like, it was enormous. And I was viewing it because I'd been done a lot of track work, and I'm like, this is easily 200 meters.
Yeah,
I was able to assess and evaluate. So I was also able to kind of check my time, and I'm like, I feel good. And I think it was, it must have been Dan that said to me, how are you feeling? And I said, I actually feel good. And I went up and I did the deadlifts. I'm like, gosh, these feel fine. These feel like 155 used to feel back in the day, because I've started to feel heavier as I've got older. So when the workouts, and I did have anxiety, that nervousness, okay, this is the first workout. Let's get the nerves out. But I want to get it going. But I wasn't scared, like you said, because it wasn't overly technical. It wasn't too complicated. It was just kind of how hard can you go. So and I do know a lot of the athletes in the field. They stagger you, so it's kind of odd at first. You don't know where you are as you're
right.
running out. So you start your barbell and you finish at your barbell. So I know my paces very well, but when I started running, I was starting to clip away people very quickly and very easily, and I felt, comfortable while I was running. And so but I did have that moment, and I was just frustrated in myself that I allowed it to get in my head. I'm like, am I going a little too fast? Because I literally caught up on everybody except for the first two athletes who were ahead of me.
Yeah,
where
because
the
they lined up a lot further ahead of you.
And I'm like thinking, but so when I came back, deadlifts felt fine. It was at 5, so it's always the lower reps to begin with. So I knew it was going to get progressively harder. But because it was the first workout and because it was deadlifts, I was intentionally a little bit more conservative. I didn't know what was to come later on in the week, which kind of hurt me a little bit more. So if I'd have known, I would have kind of probably
tried to push a little bit more.
Yeah. And it was really the first round. And we always say, like, even as coaches, is don't go all out in the first round, don't. But when you're in competition, you have to go as close to that as possible and just hang on.
Yep. You have to take a few risks when you compete. Yeah. Like, you have to really kind of put yourself out there a little bit.
Right.
But part of competing, right, you have like all these events here. I think you guys did, it was 8 events, right?
Yeah.
Your division had 8 events. The events themselves are the fitness tests, but the 9th event for you guys is doing them all in a matter of 3-4 days.
Yes.
And just staying strong. It's like, that needs to be thought about while you're doing every workout. It's like, you don't want to sell your soul on one if it's going to affect 2 or 3 others.
Exactly.
So you have to try to find that 90% line, which is a skill in of itself.
Exactly. And I think we all know, if you've done CrossFit for a long time, when you do like moderately heavy deadlifts and running, it really does smoke your posterior chain.
Oh, yeah.
And that seems to affect everything. And I just thought, well, if I overdo a little bit, that's going to hurt me. But once I finished the first round, I thought in my head, you went a little too easy in that first round. And there was no real catching up. I tried, but the 20 seconds, whatever it is that I lost, I was trying to get it back a few seconds at a time, but it was like races for me, like in the old days. If you let it go a little too much early on, it's kind of, you're not going to really
it's going to catch up to you.
Yeah. But I was very happy with how I did. But being in that first heat, you don't know what the times are to be,
right?
Which is always
that's always tough.
Hurts.
That's always tough. Yep.
Yeah. And coaches are there, and they're letting their athletes know as soon as they come in what they need to beat. So I feel like that as well kind of held me back just a little bit, but I was still very happy, like with how I did. My mindset kind of changed a little bit the day, I guess the Monday, once we got all the workouts, once they announced to us that they were taking 2 workouts out for our division, which was very, very disappointing for me, because both of them were definitely what I consider wheelhouse workouts. So for me, and I knew, and also ones that I can showcase my abilities and why I got there and why I deserve to be there. So that was hard. So it just changed how I was going to approach each workout going in. And probably I had a little bit more pressure and anxiety going into workouts that maybe it kind of hurt me a little bit. I may have approached them like a little differently to what I would have ordinarily.
Understood, yeah. So that, now that you're in it, all right, you've done that first workout, those like cobwebs are off, hey, I'm back in, I'm competing at the games. Day 2 was a little rough because of the second workout. And this workout is going to be, we're hoping to get this into Bice. I'm having a hard time finding the right days to do it just based on what other stuff we're working on. But I do think we're going to put this in at some point. But the workout was for time, 75 with a tight cap, by the way. So a lot of people don't finish this one. 75 wall balls, 40 double dumbbell shoulder to overhead, 30 dumbbell step overs, 40 dumbbell snatches, 75 wall balls. And it was your worst finish of the weekend,
Yes.
you know,
Mhm.
and hey, when you compete, you're going to have a worse finish no matter what, like that scientifically, objectively, you're going to have a worse and you're going to have a best event. And this was your worst one. This is day 2. So you're kind of like in the middle, still in the front half of the games. And I remember watching it. I remember seeing, you know, some of the reaction. It was the wall balls that really beat you up. And they're not a strength of yours, but I've seen you do enough of them that you're not bad at them. Like, you don't get there. But what happened in that event? And I remember you coming off the floor, you're very upset. And in my head, I'm like, hey, at some point, you're going to have to put this behind you because you still have a lot of ways to go. But I've been there before. I've been very upset about getting just crushed in a workout. And, you know, let's talk about, you could talk about physically what happened in that workout, but I also want to talk about mentally what was happening during and right after that workout, knowing you still had a lot of ways to go.
Yeah. Well, firstly, it was even before that. So the evening before that, or even early afternoon, I started feeling it in workout 2. Something wasn't right about me. And again, workout 2 was going to be one of the ones that I needed to crush. And I did really, really well in the warm-up area. We had the handstand walks, which if anybody's seen me in the gym, they know that I've been practicing.
Absolutely, yep.
But it was the last skill that I was able to introduce to my shoulder. So I hadn't got the proficiency. I think that if things didn't go well, that I would end up, you know, having trouble. So I did great in the warm-up area, even on a concrete floor, slippery floor. But I started feeling a little kind of dizzy and a little off, coming down off the rope climbs and going there. So then I started to get pressure and anxiety to start the handstand walks. I was starting too soon. I kept putting my hand on the line, and, you know, so I kind of fumbled and messed up that workout. I lost the confidence that, like, you've done these 20 foot over and over in the warm-up area, that I just kind of kept coming down. And I guess I wasn't able to rely on you're super proficient at these any given day, that I knew. So that was kind of tough, but I knew things weren't right. So that evening, things kind of went a little awry. I had a medical issue that I'd been dealing with earlier on in the year that I'd, you know, had some minor surgery for, and then it kind of resurfaced. But again, I'm like, I've trained through this. I've had my training buddies like Kathleen and Mindy, and they know the experience, and they've been there with me where they would help me train through it and, you know, just make me feel empowered. But I could always decide on a day I can go home. If I don't feel great, I can go home. All of a sudden, it's the next day, it's wall ball workouts. And again, if anybody knows me, they know I don't like wall balls. I mean, I'm 5 foot, okay, first of all. I don't have great wrist mobility, so I hold it on the outside, which we always tell, hold it underneath.
Yes,
and it does not work for me.
Right.
But I have a really good engine, so I always say to myself, even if I have to do 10%, 15% more wall balls, I don't care.
You can will yourself through
I will keep going.
Yeah.
I will keep going. But I started getting really dizzy. And the other thing was just such a weird thing. And it's only because I've kind of a little bit of a vertigo. I've always had it. It's in our family. So when it's an open space behind the wall ball, so I had this dizzy feeling, and I wasn't feeling like I was very, very depleted. And I'm like, you just do it. Just do it. You can do it. And I think I was 15 wall balls at the beginning, and I'm thinking, wow, this is not good. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the effort, number one. And number two, I was getting very disoriented, and it just kept going. And the difficulty was, all of you, like all of our supporters for where we were on Saturday, there was nobody behind us, you know. So you
couldn't see her even barely. You were screaming, but I was like, I don't even know if she hears us.
No, and that's what a lot of athletes who had the same, they didn't like that at all, that we didn't have our supporters, because I needed to either be able to look at you or Liz or my sister and Natalie and whatever, and just say, like, talk to me, or you know,
wait 10 seconds.
Wait 10 seconds.
Right.
And I did, and I think you probably noticed, and I did. It was very difficult, even for me looking back afterwards, to see myself literally fall apart.
Right.
Because I was stopping and looking around. I wasn't even trying to do wall balls at a certain point.
Yep.
And I was communicating with my judge, and I said to her, I said, I think I need to withdraw, because I was worried. I'm like, about how unwell I was feeling.
Right.
And I think I was something like 50 wall balls in, and I looked at the clock, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I've done Karen, and then someone already done. And then I'm thinking, hey, I guess I'm doing all 150 wall balls at the beginning instead, you know. But that was kind of how I felt. And so once I got them done, I'm like, I am just going to hammer the rest of this workout. You know, I knew at that point, this workout's done. I'm going to be right down on the bottom of the leaderboard on this one. and I just kind of wanted to finish it. And even then, like I said, we do 35 dumbbells all the time. There's nothing. When I picked up those lighter ones, it was like I felt every bit of them, and I'm like, oh dear, here we go. But so I pushed through. Right. So the mental, the thing that like empowered me was like, even with all that I had going on, I can still do this.
Yeah,
I can still push
That's
through.
a huge win.
I can.
And you could take that into future endeavors and competitions as well.
Yeah. I mean, and I always like draw, even on my past as a competitive marathon and distance runner, is like I have suffered through like the worst conditions, the heat, cold. I've fallen on my face, and at the end of a race but I'm not stopping because I'm going to be in first place and I'm not going to lose it. So that, I know I can push through a lot of discomfort. And even though I know my body is probably telling me you shouldn't be doing this, I'm like, I can do this. And I just wanted to kind of finish out like strong. But also it was just so disappointing for me, because then I knew you guys were all there, like all my team, my Bison Bees, my sister, my family, the Irish crew were all there. And I'm thinking, and this is what you showcase. And it was hard because I couldn't tell. Not everybody knew what was going on with me. They didn't know what was happening. But, you got to take it on the chin, though. There's other athletes are dealing with a lot, too. You never know what people are dealing with. And I asked for this. I signed up for this. So, it's going to be part of the course. And it could have easily have gone the other way, where I would have felt like better, I would have felt good. And then it would be, get through it. So, but I did have my moment. And I remember even Mike coming over to me, and like everybody, you guys all hugged me, and and just so, it just made me feel so loved. First of all, I felt all the love and energy, and I know everybody truly meant that they were proud, but I was so disappointed.
Right. And that's okay.
So, and so I needed my moment. So I just said, said to my sister and to Mike, just leave me. I just walked across the bus. Just let me feel this. I have to feel what I feel. I have to get it out, because
it's the best way to get it out.
I had to evaluate, where do I go from here? Where do I go from here? And I remember then, once I kind of settled down, it was Dave Lancelotti came over to me then as well. And then we had injured surgery kind of athletes kind of understanding one another, talking to me, reminding me. He said, even from that perspective of your shoulder surgery, you really weren't really supposed to be here. It was still a little too soon, and just, understand that this is a huge accomplishment just to be there. And if you have this, crash and burn, as I call it, it's okay. Next day, next event. So that's how I just tell them, okay, I'm going to dust it off. But the thing was, the next workout, again, when I saw the 10, which I thought were 10 workouts to begin with, I said, there's 3 there I'm worried about. And I was thinking, only 3. Even if you're right down the other 3, you're going to be up there with the rest of them. So I wasn't too worried. But the next workout was one of those 3.
Yeah, the next workout, because that was kind of like I had a moment in this one as well. It was first time. How many double unders was it?
It was 60-hour division, which
I tested this workout. This was the one, in my opinion, this was the one that the hardest one. So just effort and soul crusher.
Soul crusher.
So basically, there's an interval, and every interval starts off with 60 double unders, 15 chest to bar pull-ups, and then you have to go to the echo bike and do as many echo bike cows as you can in the remaining time. And the first interval is 4 minutes. There's 1 minute rest. There's a 3-minute interval, 1 minute rest, and then a 2-minute interval. And basically, what they're telling you to do is you have to go work really hard to get to that bike, and then you have to bike really hard. You have to go fast. And you really can put yourself in a blender after those 4 minutes. If you're on that bike for 2+ minutes going hard, go bike for 2 minutes and then tell me you're going to be okay to go do other stuff. And then you kind of have to be. And then the interval shortens every time. So you have to kind of keep the urgency, because you have to get to the bike to get the score. That is the score. So they're at a competition with the games. They have very standard pull-up bar heights. Here at Bison, we have low, we have high, we have very low, we have very high. It's medium. It's, hey, everyone's using the same exact pull-up bar height as the 6'4" guys that are competing. You're using that bar as well. They're not going to change pull-up bar heights for you. Spoiled CrossFitters, listen up. But they at some point, you didn't know if you were going to have risers or what, so they let a coach come on, and which was me, to lift you up onto the pull-up bar. Literally, I was on the floor. Yeah, guys, I finally made the games. All right, I was on the floor, but I got to, cool. Every time Tracy wanted to go up there, I got to lift her up, and then I took a step back Describe that workout, because that workout is probably the best workout. I know there is skill. I mean, you cross the jump rope and you have your chest bar. We talked about that. But that's like kind of like a high effort workout. And sometimes those are the best ones to do when you're just kind of like a little bit stressed out from a previous event.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the warm-up area, I did have that moment, and my sister did have to kind of talk me off a ledge where I was like, I think I need to withdraw. I really do. I said, I'm not operating at 100%. And so did double unders. I was on the echo, but I actually had tested one round of this workout here at Bison. It was the only one that I did even a piece of. And I wouldn't say I felt great, but I felt confident that I could still make a dent.
Right. You can do it.
Yeah. So, and the double unders, again, are, it's a really good skill for me. And if I trip, I don't ever worry about it. I just kind of keep going. And the bike is brutal. I'm a small athlete, and, and on these, we know mass moves mass. And I really, really have to suffer to make a dent in it at all. But I wasn't worried, so I was able to do the unbroken chest bar actually, and when I tested it, I got on the bike and now I was dying. Yeah. I mean, and my friend Nancy as well, when she said she tested, she said she cried doing this, and she's another small athlete as well. It's just absolutely brutal. It's literally like CrossFit at its probably best worst, however you want to look at it. So I knew what that was going to feel like. I said the unfortunate thing, there was that issue with the rig height, and unfortunately it was the same in the warm-up area. Okay. So I could not reach the rig in the warm-up area.
That's scary.
Yeah, and they would not let the coaches in to help us. Yep. Over the course of the time, we're getting more and more strict about it. Yep. There was a few athletes that sneakily, but very quickly, they stacked 3. Yeah. They need 3 to jump to this warm-up rig. From my shoulder, I need so much mobilization with my band. I did none of that. I jumped in before because then we were told you cannot do that. Got up there and I just did 5. I was ill prepared for going up there. And you and I never got to test the jump up either. Yep. So we were going in blind doing everything. So although I was very, very confident in my double unders, I'm very confident in my chest bar pull-ups, and I'm like, you got to hammer D's, and we even said that on the way out to get to that bike. Yeah, and that was my plan. But unfortunately, I knew every time I was getting jumped up there, I was losing time. But not having warmed up my kip well, I wasn't initiating it right when I got up there. Right. And then we did a few kind of jump ups, and then I started saying, you just got to hang up here. Yep. So I'm like vice grip, just double kipping, just trying to get those chest bar, because I'm thinking, okay, it's going to take me 2 seconds to do a double kip chest bar because you can't get your rhythm back. Right. Or you're going to drop down, it's going to 3 to 5 seconds to get back up. So, and that was a sense of urgency of that workout. So it could have been a decent one for me. And it actually wasn't my workout.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was your third best. It was your third best workout.
Right. But again, it could have been so much better.
Yeah, it could have been like a top 10 finish. Yeah.
And I wasn't the only one that encountered that. And just for full disclosure about what they actually did do, they said in the briefing that there was one crash mat. Like you said, these bars are set for 6'4" wherever athletes, and across the board, 1 6-inch riser, like it or lump it. Right. There's nothing we can do about it. Well, it just happened to be in my division. There was about 5, maybe more, short athletes in my division. Myself and Julie, if you know Julie from, so she's from Roseland. Yep. Phenomenal athlete. Yep. She's unbelievable. And so we talked about this, and her coach as well, and you guys did, where she and I think one of that were going out in front to see what to jump up, and they got themselves in trouble, and I kind of walked over with them because everybody was telling me, for whatever reason, they said, you say something, and I'm like, what about, well, you're the shortest. I'm like, Julie's 5 foot as well, you say. So I'm like, I said, I'm not going to be the one going in there complaining, because I never like to complain. Right. Say, accept your fate, whatever it is, you got to work around it. Right. But we physically could not get up there. So we grouped together.
And that would be a bad look for a comp too. Yeah. To have a bunch of people that can't even get on the pole bar.
Right. So they lowered it by a few inches, but we hadn't tested it out to see what it felt like until you came out on the floor. We had no idea what it was going to feel like. So that was really hard, to have to kind of encounter that. And I understand they said for safety reasons is why they're 6-inch riser. And this is just me, and I know I'm a short athlete, and it's not going to be relevant to most of CrossFitters or athletes like out there. But I feel that Rogue has made so many advancements and so much of their equipment.
Right.
In competitions now, there are going to be like short athletes.
Yeah,
and
you should be able to adjust your pull apart just by like a real quick
I mean,
operation.
It is a disadvantage. So I felt like in that particular, the salt or the bike is going to be good for the bigger athletes. Our advantage should be the rig, but then if you can't get to the rig, our advantage suddenly gets diminished. So the balance is kind of gone. That's how I kind of felt. So, but again, not to complain, but that's just
that's definitely it's constructive criticism.
Yeah, and the warm up area, I think, in some way should match at least where you're going to be doing
absolutely
on the floor.
Absolutely.
And masters athletes, we need to be prepared to do aggressive stuff like that. And I also need to learn lessons that I've learned, like from myself, and my sister had said it too, is that sometimes I can be like too polite. And I'm not good at pushing my way through and demanding my space and whatever. And I do kind of take a back seat. That I would say that to any athlete, when you're out there in the warm-up area, it gets crazy out there sometimes. There's limited space sometimes, limited equipment, or there's other people that will just take over all the time. And I just kept taking a backseat all the time. And then as a consequence, I wasn't getting my warm-up. And you do need to kind of push in and say, it's my turn.
Yeah, on several fronts, I think being a competitive athlete, there are some selfish traits you're going to have to adopt. And that doesn't make you a bad person, but I do think if you're really trying to win and compete at your highest level, and that's at the games and also just with your training and some of even like your family life sometimes. Like there are some selfish traits you'll have to adopt if you want to reach your ceiling. Let's talk about the highlight of the weekend. And this was your final event. It was by far your best finish. It was a 1 rep max front squat. Basically, they put a rack on the floor. They gave everyone their own rack. They gave you X amount of time, your own barbells, your own weights, and you had to establish a 1 rep max front squat. And this is an event that you absolutely murdered. You came in 7th place. You front squatted 200 pounds. Can I ask you how much you weigh?
Well, I actually lost weight. So
what do you think you were weighing at that day?
I was under 110 anyway. Definitely.
So how many people do we know that can front squat essentially double their weight front squat, not even a back squat, at the end of a competition weekend? That was an unbelievably impressive feat, but also probably the best way to finish out your CrossFit Games because that's a high. That's an absolute high. And I know you didn't want to be cut and didn't reach the Sunday cut, but that's like momentum. I'm all about momentum. Like I really think we have to try to pursue momentum, and it's not always going to be there. You have to fight through the bad times, but that's something that I really feel like you can kind of step off of as you step into your next year of training.
Yeah, I mean, it was so exciting. And the workout right before, which we didn't really touch on, involved a very heavy clean. And again, I would have been able to probably hit that had I had more time to build strength, but like my front rack has been an issue. And with a fast lift, fast elbows, and that's why I was a little bit concerned about the front squat, knowing it was coming.
Yeah.
I hit the weight in the warm up area, but then I came out. And looking back on the video, I'm very excited. Again, it was almost 40 pounds over my body weight was the clean. And I caught it like a bunch of times. I think if I caught it once, I would have been able to continue with it.
Yep.
But again, that's just telling me that I have to regain that weight that I've lost to like so that I can, be able to handle the load.
Yeah.
Because load under velocity is very different than a control load. So this is what I was telling myself after coming out of that and thinking, gosh, I didn't catch those cleans. But it almost warmed up my front rack.
Yeah, I wish they had that event before the clean event.
So do I.
I really think if you had that 1 rep max run early, you would have hit those cleans.
Yeah, because I in training the weekend before, that's literally what I did. Like when my sister Nada came in for open gym, I did front squat and clean, and I hit that weight, and it was going between the two. So the front squat really allowed me to crank my my elbow up, which again I'm working on from a rehab perspective. And that was the other thing, was difficult not having a coach to be allowed in there to help me with that.
Right.
So I had to do a lot of it by myself. But when, again, coming off the clean, even though maybe it would be perceived as a disappointment, I was sad that I didn't hit it. And again, I felt like I'm letting everybody down and myself down. But I'm like, it's okay. Another event to go. Let's do this. And I remember walking out on the floor, and it was just like, it just hit me. Just first of all, this is your last workout. You guys were all there, all the Bison people, my sister, my daughter, Mike, and all the Irish people, which, I mean, them, like, they were like unbelievable crazy. So they had the flag and the Baron, like, so this Baron is an Irish thing, which is like, it's very festive.
Yeah.
And it, so that was like just that feeling. And it was just like all of you. And it was just like, just like, oh, Tracy, just
put you on that high.
Just finish out strong. So because it didn't require intensity, even though I was still dealing with a lot of the stuff that I had.
Yep. It was more controlled.
It was controlled,
yeah.
Exactly. And again, I know through training exactly how to pace something like that. We do that in training all the time. Prepare for the lift, and now you've got whatever amount of time. Spread out these and know enough exactly how much time you need to rest to hit the next one. I had a really good game plan. I knew what I needed to go going in. And then when I just looked there, and you guys were right in front of me.
Right.
That was huge.
Right.
I was just, because I felt like I was getting reinforcement every time that you're doing the right thing, even as I was loading the barbell. And it was also empowering to me. I'm looking around, I'm like, I'm putting on more weight than other people. And I'm like, no, stick with the plan. You're good. And once I hit that, it was a bit of a nervous first lift. I would say that first front squat.
Yep. I believe.
But it was one that I was very, very comfortable doing. But it was hard, and I got that one out of the way, and then everybody was like so excited. And what I kept doing, and everyone was saying like, why you keep taking your belt off? It's like, I never usually wear a weight belt. I only use it for maybe that last one lift. Right. So I was
like a max lift.
A max lift. So that I was taking it off, and that was kind of wasting time fussing. But it was like, no, this is my recovery. You're okay. Just put it back on. So I wanted to do 195. I'd done it before, and I said, I think I can do it. But I'm feeling a little depleted, but it's just one. You can do just one. And so I loaded up the 195. That was my next. Or did I do? I think I did three. Didn't I? I did three weights. I did 175, 185,
and then 200.
And
then you took another bar off the rack, and you're like, no, I'm not.
No. Yeah. So what happened there? So I asked the question in the corral, and nobody had really like asked that before. Like, and I guess they have a list of everything that they're going to tell you about what you have to remember. And I said, if you start a front squat, do you get credit for it if it finishes
after the
clock? And they said no.
Yeah, so you have to be done with the squat.
We have to be done with the squat. So when I hit the 195, I'm like, that's the one I wanted to get. So I'm like, I'm gonna go 200. I haven't. This is just a number I haven't touched in probably years, actually. So before my surgery, I may have dabbled around it, but I'm like, I don't need to go like that heavy, like on a front squat. If I'm up in that vicinity, like I'm happy. But I said I'll go over. So it was unbelievably exciting. I mean, you guys just exploded. It was absolutely insane, and I was so excited. And I really do think I did kind of faff about, is what we say, Irish people. After that, when I think I could have hit the 205.
Yeah, for sure. I bet you would have.
And I think if I'd just, but you just need a bit more time for setup, and that's what it was. I think if I did just in my head, because I think I was like, I was just so excited for 200, and I'm like, I'm done like that. And then everybody was saying, no, go on. Like, why not?
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you? And it was the last event. So,
those are the times to take a risk too.
Exactly. And I stepped back, and I think even if I had maybe had the possibility of not finishing, I might have kind of attempted it. Right. But it was like it was the 3-2-1 when I stood back, and I'm like, nope, I'm good. Yeah, it was very, very exciting. It was so much fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now that we're here, we're a week removed, you probably have, kind of reflected and emotions up and down. Just to wrap this up, I would like to just talk about what your future is. And, it could be your future, where you think the game's future should be with the Masters community. Like, do you think they should keep it exclusive as their own event? Or I think they should, for a lot of reasons. But I would like to get kind of like, where's Tracy at? Like, what's your plan, both now in terms of like training and staying in the game for next season? Because I think the mistake a lot of people make out of competing is that the endorphins are high and they just want to they just like, all right, here I go. I'm going for it. It's like, you got to let yourself come down a little bit and let some things fix. Your momentum will come back at some point. So I'm kind of curious, what is your plan, your future, your mindset, both for yourself, and where do you want the games to go? Because they have to keep their train moving if you're going to have a sport to compete in.
Yeah. Firstly, I really did need that week of reprieve after, because I came away very, very disappointed with my performance. We obviously talked a lot about that. I had big goals for myself, even though happy to be there. It's a privilege. It was an honor. I was so excited to be there. I'm very competitive, and I knew what I was capable of, and I just wanted to at least do that, showcase what I was capable of and have that performance kind of line up with that. So I did a family over. My sister was over, and I was visiting with my children. So that gave me an opportunity just to kind of focus on different things for a little bit, so I wouldn't dwell too much on that disappointment. And then I came in. I think I came in with Natalie, but I wasn't really training per se. It was
just fun workout type.
Fun workout and get that done. And then I came in, I think on Thursday, and that's when I just started feeling like myself again. I'm like, oh, wouldn't it have been great if I got to do all these total bar, because I can do all these 18, 14, then all unbroken. And hey, these lunges feel great. I wish I got to do lunges. It was that, but it was also like, okay, you're good, because I started doubting my capabilities and all those things, which just start to happen when you're an athlete. But I always say, like, there's always that post-competition blues almost, like you've put so much energy and focus onto preparing for an event, and then it's like Christmas or things like that, then it's over and it's like there's a little bit of this kind of, now what?
Yeah, right.
So
right.
I had a little bit of that feeling, but I also had, another kind of thing that I usually think about, and more women will relate to this analogy. But I think CrossFit and competing is a little bit like childbirth.
Yeah.
Where when you're in the throes of it, you're like, oh my God, why am I doing this? This really hurts. I want to stop. Why did I do this?
Yep.
And then it's over, and and then it's like you forget whatever happened.
Yeah,
and then
right.
you're right back
all
into
worth it.
Kind of,
yeah.
It's all worth it.
And then you're doing it again.
And then you're doing it again. So, but I did have a point of reflection. There's a lot that I'm going to have to do, even just the rehab alone, of continued rehab, of trying to regain that a full external rotation, and dealing with, I said, some of the health and medical issues that I have, and seeing if I can continue just to kind of build and stay stronger. And initially what I want to do is just go back in class and have fun. Just come back and just,
I like that.
And take each workout as it comes with no expectations, and just enjoy it there for a while. Give my body a chance to really fully heal. But I'm not going to sit back completely like on my laurels if I do have, aspirations or intentions of getting stronger, because I don't like that back to zero, rebuild back up every time. So if I can just kind of continue to maintain during this kind of
you will not be rebuilding like you had to last year.
Right, exactly. So it would be nice to kind of
get some real training.
Get some real training in.
Yeah.
And I do feel always at the end of a season like this, whatever your sporting season is, at the end of the CrossFit season, this is it now. Okay? At the end of the games, this is when you make your plan.
Yep.
Now, I mean, it doesn't have to be so finite,
right?
But you have to more or less have a plan of what you want to do for the upcoming year.
Yeah.
So, and depending on the level that you're at or what your aspirations are, like, now is the time to start working on those skills. Now is the time to start continuing to build on your strength, and so I will take the time to kind of reflect a little bit. The fact is, I'm just competitive by nature. It's just, I can still enjoy the process. I do love the process, but I'm very goal oriented.
Yeah.
I like to have something to pursue in order to give purpose to my training once it gets hard. So when it's fun and you're enjoying the community, that's fine. But once you get into the thick of it and it starts getting hard, you need to have a kind of purpose to kind of go with that. So I'm hoping that the Masters CrossFit, like of itself, will continue to grow the way that it did, regardless of what I choose, where I choose to go with it, because I would be behind and supportive of other athletes, even if it's not myself, to bolster them to kind of reach their goals. I think they did a fantastic job with doing that. Having been to the games where the Masters and the individuals were together 9 years ago, it was still fantastic. It was a great experience. But the Masters were definitely a backseat to the individual.
Yeah.
That there was a division amongst the spectators.
Yep. And there's less of you.
Yeah.
I think having their own event really does open the door to getting more athletes there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it just put a spotlight on Masters, and it was such a spectacle.
It was great.
You were there every event, every workout. There was just crowds.
Yep.
And the energy was just fantastic. And
yes, Sam and I are going to do an episode next week on just kind of like an evaluation of the games itself, and like the good, the bad, and it's more good than bad. But there's always going to be things to fix. I would say the same thing about a random 5 a.m. class. Like, could coach like, oh, that could have been better. So, but we will give some of those opinions on what it was like from a spectator perspective and what could be better for this to keep rocking, because I really do think they got to find a way to keep this thing going. You could take us out of it.
Yeah.
There's so many people that this can really light a fire for and give them something motivated. If they ever cut it out, I think you'd see a huge drop in just CrossFit in general.
I think so too. So. Yeah. I mean, at some point, every athlete is going to become a Masters.
Yep.
So that it will be great to have that there and growing, like with the input, with the feedback that we're going to give if they are interested in what we have to say, which I'm sure that they are.
It will be. Yep.
I think from an athlete perspective, there's a few things that would definitely make it better. But it was great. The space,
awesome.
that was really just about us.
And they've struggled with that in the past.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it was excellent. Yeah.
And Masters athletes at the end, they are so incredibly supportive of one another.
Yep.
And even like the coaches, like, I got to talk to like Julie's coach, Marquand. I do know them, and some of the other ones.
Yep.
It's like
it's a different vibe.
Yeah,
it's
really,
a good vibe.
really is. And they want for everybody to be able to have this opportunity as well. I did feel, again, having gone before, it was Carson, so it was obviously a completely different location. But having indoor, outdoor, it was just it was a different kind of energy and vibe. We were indoor like for the whole time, for the whole event. It meant the space was great, the floors was great, but it was just you just felt like we're kind of in a fishbowl, kind of most of the time, so we needed
something for them to think about that.
Yeah. But it was, but for me going forward, I think I just need a little bit of time now to just enjoy training with my,
your crew,
with my crew, like the 930 crew, and and my girls, and just I know that Legends is coming up for them too, and a lot of athletes there, and not even just Masters, because I know that we have young athletes in the gym as well, and if they got a chance to kind of look at how some of the like even say the 35 to 39, like your age division, Dave, and the level,
it's crazy,
it's insane.
It is,
how they perform. And I think just being around the athletes here in Bison when they are doing the online qualifiers, knowing what level that they have to perform at, I think it'll just bolster everybody and just help everybody to get better. Everyone's got
to drink out of that cup and pour into that cup. We got to give and take from that cup, because and I do think that's why there's the vibe of master sport in our gym is so strong. I was telling a few people from down there that I got to talk to, is like we had 57 athletes go from Masters qualify for age groups, and they did like a double take. They're like, wait, what? From one gym? And I was like,
yeah, right.
And I do think it's like that idea that people, we do a good job of balancing, drinking and pouring from that cup.
Yeah. And also, Dave, I mean, it's a testament to you and your programming and your work ethic, and like as a coach, and what you expect of us, and the challenge that you put in front of us. I mean, certainly from my perspective, like all of the coaching and the programming that you do, I felt like I was as prepared as I could possibly have been.
With your assistant.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, I look forward to just kind of keeping the train going, like to have a normal year of training. I think it could be even better next year. You have to put the work in, and you have to want to do it. You have to come up with that plan. We'll talk at some point, but it will be fun to have a real year of training rather than 7 months of rehab and 3 months of I don't know if I can do this, and then I made the games.
Well, that's what it was after semifinals. It's like I started wanting it, and then I got it.
Made the games.
And then I'm like, oh shit! Sorry.
No, you're good.
I actually made it. Oh my god! Yeah. So no, I would like my mantra throughout all of that was like, I want to stay healthy and injury free.
Yeah.
They were really, because if you're not that, then you can't really continue to, to perform or compete. But yeah, having a solid year behind me would be fantastic.
You can soar.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you for the time, Tracy, on a Sunday morning. Again, very proud of you.
Oh,
and I look forward to the future. I'm proud of you, but also excited for the future and equally. Like I don't want to look at the past too much and celebrate too much. I want to get to work at some point and really kind of get this train moving back to making the 2025 CrossFit Games, which who knows where they'll be. But there will be another Masters Games. I'm very confident in that based on what happened this year. So for those that are out there that are going through any sort of, if you want to call it, aging process, midlife crisis process, trying to bounce back from an injury, and it's not as easy as you thought because you're older than you used to be, I want you to use Tracy as an inspiration. That doesn't mean you need to try and make the games if you have an injury, but I do think you can come back from anything as a stronger version of yourself, mentally, emotionally, and physically. It's not easy, and it's not a process that most of us want to really take part in, but it is possible. And I think that's one thing I love about the sport is that the inspiration and ideas and thoughts that you can give to other people for the future can stem from situations like this, going through these ups and downs. All right.
Dave, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was an absolute honor to compete for CrossFit Bison, and I really just want to make you proud. I hope that I did.
Absolutely.
Even though I feel like I underperformed somewhat, but it was really an amazing experience, and it was just made better just by all of you guys being there, my sister, my daughter, and my husband, and all my Irish friends. Who, by the way, my friend Audrey, just a little tidbit. So we've been friends since we were like teens, and we started in the gym doing the crazy, almost CrossFit-esque stuff that nobody else was doing. We were only benching and squatting and whatever. So like she was there, and she was on the bobsled Olympic team.
Oh wow!
Afterwards, and then transitioned like into CrossFit. So all that energy kind of behind was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Really so cool.
All right. Well, I have a feeling that we're gonna see you there again, and my hope is that we see some other athletes there as well.
Most definitely.
Let's go, baby. Yes. Let's go. All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.